In the labyrinthine city of Nagan, where scholars and explorers reside, a teacher appeared explaining the concept of speech arts, stating that regardless of race or language, speech arts are unusable in the world of visitors. After the lesson, Liucels asked Yuno to teach her the arts of strength, given Yuno's skill in them, and Yuno agreed. Elsewhere, a group of people were battling a metallic golem, astonished by its emergence from the labyrinth, suspecting it was chasing a thief. They thought they had subdued it, but it moved again, and one of them ordered them to search for its power core. Meanwhile, Liucels was training with Yuno on moving stones. Afterward, they ate and talked about the coronation of Sevit from the United Western Kingdom as queen and the creation of Oriatia, saying that the Great Labyrinth is full of secrets not yet fully discovered, despite the end of the Demon King. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, buildings collapsed, and a golem emerged from the rubble, attacking Liucels and killing her. Yuno witnessed the horrifying scene and fled, but the golem saw her through its lens. While escaping, she asked a nearby woman for help, but the woman was quickly killed, increasing Yuno's panic, especially as fire spread and the city filled with golems. She vowed she wouldn't die, and when a golem approached her, she unleashed her power, hitting it with explosive sparks and knocking it down. She realized she could have saved Liucels. Determined to face the golems, she challenged them to kill her, but a mysterious young man suddenly appeared, eliminated the golems with his weapon, and asked if she truly wanted to die. She stood shocked, and he continued, saying there were still enjoyable things awaiting her. She asked if he was a visitor, and he said she could call him whatever she liked. She wondered if they had defeated all the golems, as her world also contained combat machines, but none matched the power of his sword. As he began gathering herbs, Yuno warned him of their poison, so he threw them away and asked if she had any food. She urged him to flee, as the city was doomed, and he asked why. She pointed to a massive creature, wondering if he could kill it with his sword. It turned out that the Great Labyrinth itself was just a colossal golem designed to defeat the true Demon King. The young man threw his sword directly into the golem's chest, causing it to fall motionless. After retrieving his sword, he asked for some food and promised to protect her from golem attacks. She asked for his identity, and he replied, Sugiro, the last of the Yagyu Shinkaje. She realized he was a visitor entirely different from their world and noticed his ability to use speech arts, which was impossible for visitors. She recalled her teacher's words, saying the world of visitors was built on the laws of physics, making them unable to understand speech arts. Yet, she couldn't ignore Sugiro's strength, who insisted on fighting for fun despite her repeated warnings. He moved with incredible speed, cutting through golems as he ran, and she wondered about the secret of his superhuman speed. Suddenly, a massive golem appeared and unleashed a tremendous light, the same one that had burned the city before. As the light spread, destroying everything around, Sugiro climbed the golem's body and swiftly severed its neck, thanking Yuno for her help. He remembered a story from the past about a combat technique called Mutodori, which allows a warrior to evade an opponent's attack and steal their weapon. He used this concept to stab the golem in its power core, causing its final collapse. Yuno stood in awe, wondering why the Great Labyrinth had moved today. Was it because of Sugiro's power, or had it done so intentionally to confront him? Sugiro returned to her, expressing his joy in cutting down golems, explaining that the chest was the energy broadcast center, making it easier to find their weak points. As he prepared to leave, she stopped him and offered him food, which he ate heartily, admitting he had forgotten his hunger during the fight. She watched him silently, disheartened by the presence of such strong individuals, feeling that their existence made her life seem insignificant. She recalled the battles and destruction caused by the golems and resolved to rely on herself. Sugiro asked her about his next destination, and she told him it was Oriachia, the greatest city ever, where the strongest fighters gathered. An idea struck her, and she offered to guide Sugiro to Oriachia as a researcher from Nagan, which would make things easier. Sugiro agreed to her offer, and as she looked at the devastation around her, she walked with him. In the new Principality of Lithia, General Terran, known as the Guardian, had fled from Oriatia and declared Lithia's independence from Oriatia, renaming it the New Principality, which provoked a military response from Oriatia. One day, Lana, nicknamed the Moonstorm, was returning to Lithia after being sent as a spy for Terran. During her journey, swarms of wyvern dragons became agitated and nearly attacked. Lana asked Higuar if they could reach their destination before the dragons caught up, but he replied it was impossible, as he was driving the carriage at maximum speed, yet they might still be devoured. Later, he told her what he had heard about Teacher Terran and her title Queen of Demons. Lana commented that it was just a title given to her by the kingdom, and he said he had heard that the Minia society was ruled by 3 kingdoms, with only Oriatia remaining, as the others had perished due to the Demon King. He wondered if the Demon King had crowned himself, and soon a conversation ensued between Shulk and Higuar, where Higuar mocked Shulk for not knowing much and not believing he worked as a mercenary. Higuar replied that he had lived his life to wield the blade, hence his name, Higuar of the Deep Sea, while Shulk introduced himself as Shulk the Voice Cutter. Lana demanded they stop arguing so they wouldn't kill each other before arriving. Suddenly, they realized the wyvern dragons weren't the only ones chasing them. When Lana checked the situation from behind the curtain, she noticed outlaws lying in wait to seize their cargo, as they were completely surrounded, facing both dragons and criminals. The number of pursuers increased, and one of them exploded the area with explosives, threatening the driver to stop, or they would all be blown up. Just as one outlaw was about to shoot the driver, a wyvern suddenly pounced on him, carrying him off into the sky. His companions wondered why the dragons had arrived so quickly, but Lana noticed the dragons were coming from the city and told them they could relax. Meanwhile, the outlaws tried to shoot the dragons but weren't trained for aerial combat, so they all fell after being torn apart by the dragons. The wyvern dragons stood over their corpses before other black dragons flew into the sky, and one of the dragons ordered not to eat many of flesh, only to tear them apart as a warning to those daring to confront the new principality. He ordered the rest of the swarm to launch an aerial attack, leading to a fierce clash between the two sides. Fires were launched into the air, and one of them asked if Lord Ringiji was a wyvern dragon. Lana confirmed it, saying that thanks to the wyvern dragon's protection, the new principality was highly secure, as no other city in history had used wyvern dragons for aerial warfare. They were invincible. Higuar asked why the outlaws were attacking them, and Lana replied that was why his and Shulk's presence was necessary. Higuar inquired if someone was directing the outlaws, and Lana confirmed it, stating it was someone who would benefit from attacking Lithia. Shulk concluded that Oriatia was the real adversary. Elsewhere, Hito was eating his meal, talking about Lithia, and confirming that the outlaws' attacks on trade caravans wouldn't be enough, as they were dealing with Terran the Guardian. His companion replied that the Imperial competition to choose the champion was a serious matter, and if Lithia launched a full-scale attack, it would be impossible to handle. So war should be the last resort, suggesting assassination and asking Hito's opinion on the Ilia squad of the 17th Minister to carry out the mission. Hito opposed it, so he suggested General Hargant, the 6th, but preferred not to involve Hargant, as he was currently in the Tilet Valley subduing a dragon there. The other asked if he could use anyone as long as Oriasia wasn't implicated, and Hito gave permission, provided the assassination appeared as an accident. In the dragon hunting camp in the Tilet Valley, Becky served coffee to Hargant, who looked exhausted after a 20-day march to set up the camp. Hargant asked about the tracking unit, and Becky replied that the Razio soldiers were divided into 3 groups, with continuous patrols over the valley. Hargant ordered an increase in the number of guards starting the next day, and asked about the Scorched One. Becky confirmed they had injured it and seen it flying in the sky, but it was now hiding. Hargant saw it as a perfect opportunity to hunt it, wishing to defeat it to enter history. But a soldier reported that 6 archers had been attacked, and when he contacted them, they were reported missing, while the Scorched One was crawling underground toward them. Suddenly, Hargant found himself outside the tent, facing the dragon, which asked if he was the general, and threatened to torture him to death if he didn't answer about the number of other hunting squads. Hargant asked about the deformities on its body, and it told him it had been injured by a Minia hero, who was also a wyvern dragon. Hargant tried to confront it, but was surprised by the appearance of Alos, a dragon born with 3 upper limbs, known as the Star Runner. The Scorched One demanded he not interfere, but Alos responded with an attack of magical poisonous bullets that exploded upon contact with the dragon's nerves, causing it to fall. When the dragon tried to activate its glowing death shield, Alos split it in half with his sword. Hargant then told him that the 29 officials in Oriatia were searching for a champion and gathering the strongest people from around the world, and if he was proud of his strength, he should step forward, but they wouldn't choose him. Alos replied that he knew that, believed he would become more important than them one day. As he prepared to leave, he revealed to Hargant his destination, the destroyed city of Nagan, as he was pursuing something there. As Terran walked through the area, a child called out to her, saying that his father was getting many customers thanks to her help. She replied that her job was to create plans to ensure the citizens of Lithia didn't suffer, while his father worked hard every day in his shop, so he should thank him instead. The child then gave her a gift he had made himself after learning crafts at the children's club. She admired it and told him it would be perfect for storing her hair ties. She promised to make good use of it and encouraged him to study hard to become a good citizen like his father. She left with pride, having fought many battles and being one of the 29 former officials of Oriathia, holding the rank of General 23. She was talented in literature, martial arts, and politics. After the death of the true Demon King, she declared her independence from Oriathia, proclaimed herself the Queen of Demons, and established her own military force, preparing for conflict with Oriathia. In the central castle of Lithia, Terran walked through its halls, contemplating that the war with Oriathia was imminent. She needed to hurry with preparations to not miss the chance for victory. Upon entering her office, she spoke with Dakai, who appeared and wondered how she knew he had returned. She replied that it was just a guess, as she always called for him whenever she entered her office. She asked if he had brought what she requested from Nagan. He tossed her the item, and she confirmed that what she wanted was the cold star, saying he was indeed resourceful. He asked about the nature of the item, and she explained that it was a magical artifact documented in records predating the Demon King's reign. She suspected that Kiyazuna, who had proclaimed himself king, used it to power the Great Labyrinth, which turned out to be true. Passing through the central crystal converts sunlight into explosive light capable of bombarding the city. Dakai expressed concern about its danger, and she assured him that anything from the distant world was inherently extraordinary. Enchanted swords and magical artifacts were anomalous entities that couldn't be tolerated easily and didn't flow into their world without difficulty. She asked if he had investigated other magical artifacts besides the cold star. He replied that he had searched everywhere and found nothing of value. She told him she only needed that item, but he asked if she minded that he hadn't brought the dungeon golem, as he didn't know who had defeated it, despite it being an important piece of equipment. She answered that she had thought it was him, and he wondered in surprise if there was someone else as strong as him. Terran quickly decided to give him another task, as the trade caravans entering and leaving Lithia had been under continuous attack for 2 months by outlaws sent by Oriathia. Dakai questioned the role of Rigneji, who protected Lithia's skies, encountering these threats. Terran replied that the problem was that shipments were being stolen during their journey to Lithia, rendering the Wyvern Dragon army helpless. The constant appearance of outlaws posed another dilemma, as they were being used to monitor Lithia's reactions, such as delays in Wyvern interception, or the transfer of important shipments. She suspected there was a spy leaking information, and wished for him to find and capture them by any means necessary. Dakai began his investigation, meeting several people and confronting them for entering Lithia disguised as merchants, sneaking through the chaos. When he realized they were from Oriathia's secret intelligence, he engaged them directly, using his super speed and combat skills. He took one down with his knife and killed the others with his dagger and enchanted sword, disregarding Lithia's law. He was known as the Magpie, a being from the distant world with exceptional vision. Meanwhile, Rigneji announced an important meeting to sentence a dragon to execution after a 9-year-old girl from Lithia went missing. As the investigation began, it became clear that Deputy Commander Luke Weil from the Southern Rangers unit had eaten a child, according to a witness's testimony. This sparked outrage, and in front of everyone, Rigneji attacked Luke Weil, delivering consecutive blows until his blood spilled, declaring that anyone who ate Lithia's citizens would be executed without exception. On the other side, Kurt was writing in her journal about Rigneji, who had seemed busy lately. When he returned and asked what she was doing, she told him she was recording events as nobles do. He didn't care and asked her to sing, as he wanted to hear her voice. It was said that Kurt had lost her sight due to the destruction caused by the Demon King in her hometown, but she hadn't lost her sanity thanks to a surreal song she heard in the darkness, which she now sang often. After she finished, she asked him about Lithia's fate. He reassured her that war was coming, but she wouldn't be alone. She tried to touch him, but he pushed her away as usual, causing her to fall. He simply wondered how stubborn she was, and she continued singing until he flew up and disappeared. Someone informed Hito that they had received a report from the headquarters in the city of Mage. He asked if the new principality had come under his jurisdiction, and the answer was yes, as the third minister had sent a notice that morning. The content was that regular communications had ceased with 10 members of their secret apparatus in one day. Hito asked about survivors, and the reply was that there were none, as they were all elite agents led by the 17th minister. He inquired about the number needed to cover that, and the answer was that they required 64 members for the tactical team and a sniper. He asked if Miss Elia, the 17th minister, was aware, as she should be informed first. The man replied that she was on a remote mission. Radio communication was impossible, so he had to inform Hito as the acting civil officer. Hito responded that he hadn't been officially appointed, and the man asked if new undercover agents would be sent. Hito said they needed to try something else, as in the east of Mage, there was a flooded land dug by a spring, and the men should camp there. The man objected that it was far from the defense site, but Hito replied that it would be used for attack, and the troublesome wyvern dragons wouldn't see them. He decided to send some fortification experts the next day. The man asked about releasing Nihilo, and Hito said he would handle it. Later, he knocked on Nihilo's cell door, saying he knew she was awake, as 10 members of the Secret Service in the new principality had been killed in one day. He asked how much she wanted, as she had wiped out an entire regional army single-handedly in Oriathia, and according to current records, she was the most terrifying biological weapon ever. In the province of Eta Silvan, Alia stood in front of a mirror, murmuring that her great-grandmother used to say that beauty was a talent granted by an angel at birth, but she believed it emerged with hard work and required care. Later, she went to a girl named Yawika and went down to the pool with her. Yawika thought she had gone to Oriathia, but Alia replied that she would stay in the village for the day and thought about taking a bath. Yawika asked about Kia, and Alia said she would bid everyone farewell the next day before leaving. Yawika asked her to teach her something special, and Alia replied that she would only teach her the art of speech. She began explaining that there were 4 main systems, mentioning the arts of heat and craftsmanship. Yawika asked if she had learned them alone, and Alia said she had learned them from her neighbor, Moya. Alia continued that there were also the arts of strength and life, explaining the uses of each. The art of heat was like what her mother used in cooking, while strength involved moving objects and making them fly. She gave an example of creating an ice block through the art of craftsmanship, saying this art was used to change things. The art of life was used by doctors to heal wounds or treat colds, and could alter the taste of things, like turning water into wine. Fairies were very skilled in the arts of life, and she also excelled in them. Yawika commented that Grandma Mitch was skilled in healing wounds and asked how she did it. Alia replied that she simply did it. After Alia's bath, Kia surprised her, wondering who knew she would take a long bath with Yawika, as she was careless at home but acted elegantly outside. Alia asked what she was doing, and Kia replied that she had been about to bathe but took too long at the pool, so she decided to relax up the tree where there weren't many insects. Alia asked if she had listened to her lesson with Yawika, and Kia said she hated studying. She used the art of speech to grow a tree seed and bring it down before returning it to the tree. Alia saw that Kia possessed exceptional speech arts that defied basic rules, so she warned her not to use them to indulge her whims. Kia replied that her talent was to bring happiness to others, and Alia said her power was special, but would be boring if used normally. Kia confirmed she had no problem as long as she enjoyed her life, and Alia warned her that what was normal here wasn't normal outside Eta. She would soon enroll in a school in Oriathia. Kia asked if they weren't about to head to Lithia, and Alia replied that Lithia wasn't just inhabited by fairies, but also dwarves and leprechauns, and she needed to consider how people viewed her. Kia didn't care and said she could handle them easily, claiming it was enough to say die, and they would all perish. The next day, Kia stood with Yawika and Theon, who had come to bid her farewell. Alia met them, and Theon thanked her because the children had become smart, thanks to her. Alia replied that she had once told him knowledge was like a seed, and he added that as long as it was watered with learning, it would grow on its own. He said she had planted that seed but couldn't offer anything in return. She hugged him, wishing to find kind students like them, and Yawika also hugged her, while Kia grumbled. Theon asked if she didn't want to go study in Oriathia, and Kia replied that only weirdos studied there. Despite this, Alia had assumed a false identity and secured a study abroad program in Oriathia for Kia to compete in the Imperial contest to determine the champion. She was confident that Kia could defeat Oriathia itself, and if she won, no one would look down on her. Yawika asked Kia to go to their favorite spot before leaving, and Alia and Theon accompanied them. Theon remarked that he hadn't known there was a hidden path through the bushes leading to the hill, and Yawika told him it led to a place where he could see the peak of the village watchtower. Alia guessed that wild boars or deer used this path, and Theon said he could get rid of boars with his strength arts. They moved forward, and Alia remembered that during the Harvest Festival, she had recorded the defensive measures taken, fascinated by the excitement and beauty, and learned the uses of forest plants. She had sent detailed records of some medicinal herbs to Oriathia via a bird, and investigated a remote area where dense fog hindered human passage. She knew that Oriathia's army would eventually take everything from that village, as there were rumors of a village from the Demon King's era with someone possessing great speech arts. She had learned the village's location from a captured Lithia soldier, and had to deal with anyone who knew her connection to that world. Soon, the children informed her they had arrived, and Kia said the place wasn't special, so she asked her not to come. Theon and Yawika suggested she clear the clouds with her power, and Kia asked the stars to disperse, which they did, revealing a stunning view. Alia was amazed, seeing that Kia was invincible with her power, as no matter who stood in her way, she always won. Afterward, Kia and Alia bid farewell to the village and left. Lana returned to Lithia, and Terran praised her for choosing Shulk, Higwar, and thanked her, saying that the presence of someone with powerful speechcraft was just a rumor. Lana replied that it would be dangerous if they actually existed. Terran mentioned that she had heard Higwar had never lost a fight as a gladiator in the remote regions. Higwar confirmed that he had fought for about 13 or 14 years according to Minya's calendar. Terran spoke about the savage cities that bet on the lives of humans and beasts, an illegal practice. Shulk explained that some slave traders had ordered Higwar to fight for 14 years, yet he remained undefeated. When asked to talk about his life, Higwar said he was born in the far west, in a place unknown to the Minya lineages, until he was captured and forced to fight, given the choice to kill his opponent or die, thus beginning his journey as a gladiator. In one match, he was ordered to fight 3 opponents at once and realized he would be killed if he didn't win, but he succeeded in defeating them. Later, his owner sold him to another city where the crowd wanted to see him killed. He faced a very strong duelist, realizing he was outmatched but managed to defeat him. Later, he had to face opponents armed with guns, using his climbing arms to attack them before they could shoot him, eventually becoming the most famous gladiator ever. One day, his owner entered and told him he would fight the army of the true Demon King. A fierce battle broke out amidst fire and chaos, and he realized he was facing certain death, but he continued fighting until the end. Lana added that when she found him, she knew he had been fighting the Demon King's army. Dakai entered and looked at Shulk, saying he carried a spear, then observed Higuar, puzzled by his unpredictable behavior and inability to see his face, guessing he had several knives hidden in his body. Terran explained that everyone was strong, but they needed unique powers to instill fear in enemy armies. Lana asked Shulk if he was ready for the mission, and he replied that he was a mercenary and wouldn't work without upfront payment. She confirmed she knew exactly what reward he sought, information about the last land, where the Demon King died. Dakai mocked his intentions, saying he would take the reward and run, but Shulk retorted that he shouldn't expect free work. Dakai commented that he was better off than the quiet Higuar. He threw an apple at Higuar, asking about his food, but Higuar returned it to the table and sliced it with his knife, stating he didn't eat fruit. Lana was amazed, realizing that the climbers used 3 arms at once. Higuar revealed all his arms, saying he could use 42 arms, having honed his skills in duels by killing vast numbers without being controlled by anyone. In the village of Mount Raishi, Hito expressed concern that the bags would slow them down, explaining it would take 3.5 days, and asked if there were enough beds for everyone. Cozy replied that the poor house of the religious community had extra rooms but wasn't sure about food. Hito assured him that his soldiers wouldn't beg the community for food, and asked Cozy if he was strong, despite being just a cleaning official. Cozy confirmed he was indeed strong. When Cozy returned to the community headquarters, Rebel asked how long he had been gone, and he replied that he had returned with many guests. Nehilo introduced herself, saying Cozy was her escort, which surprised Rebel, but she didn't comment. Cozy asked Rebel how she got out of prison, and she replied that she had gained her freedom in exchange for helping Hito. He wondered what she would have done if she hadn't gotten that chance, and she said she might have fought. He asked if someone like her had survived the era of the Demon King, and he replied that he had survived because he had an angel by his side. During dinner, Rebel mentioned that the soldiers of Yuriachia had camped there for a while, but the traders who came today were more polite and helped her. Nehilo wondered why the soldiers had visited, especially since they were under the command of the 6th General, Hargant. Rebel replied that they had come to face Vishian the Burned, the black dragon from the Age of Legends. Cozy started playing a dragon hunting game with the children, which amazed Nehilo. Later, he took her to her room and asked her to rest. He relaxed on the couch until Rebel came and asked if he would cooperate with Lithia, explaining that some people from Lithia had offered to support their church in exchange for their help. Suddenly, an arrow flew toward Cozy, but he deflected it. Rebel tried to protect him but was injured. One of the attackers tried to convince her that Cozy was collaborating with Yuriachia, but she didn't listen. Cozy defended her and knocked one of the attackers down. One of the attackers commented that his defense was strong and that he couldn't be captured alive. Cozy pleaded with his angel not to kill the attackers, but one tried to shoot him. His angel intervened and took down the enemies one by one until only one attacker remained, who almost killed him, but Nehilo saved him at the last moment. Rebel apologized to Cozy, saying she hadn't expected anyone to try to kill him, but he realized too late that she had been hit by an arrow in her kidney. He apologized to her before she died in his arms. Later, Cozy saw his angel's manifestation in the sky, and Nehilo asked if he always saw an angel. He replied that maybe the angel was watching him, and when she asked for the angel's name, he answered, Nastic the Singer. In the city of Maij, Hito wondered if his guests had arrived, and his assistant confirmed they had, realizing he was the one who was late. When he entered his office, he introduced himself as Hito, the 20th minister, and apologized for his delay. Yuno introduced herself as a trainee researcher from the city of Nagan, and he skipped the formalities, praising her for taking the initiative to inform him about the new visitor, then turned to Sogiro, referring to him as Willow Sword. Sogiro replied that his name was Sogiro. Hito then got to the point, saying the enemy was the 23rd General of Yuriachia, Terran the Guardian, who had an army of dragons and wyverns, along with mercenaries and magical artifacts, and he wanted to eliminate her before the war broke out. Sogiro asked about the Empire's competition to choose a hero, and Hito replied that eliminating Terran would be a test for him, and if he made a significant impact, he would gain the support of the 29 officials and be nominated. Yuno whispered to Sogiro, warning him to be more polite with Hito, as he was a very important figure, but Hito reassured them that they were lucky, as he was a tolerant person. He guessed that Lithia's affairs were important to Yuno, and she confirmed it, asking if he was sure that one of Terran's followers had been in the Nagan maze that day. He confidently replied that his name was Dakai the Magpie, a duelist who carried a blue enchanted sword. She wondered if the basement golem had been activated due to Dakai entering the depths of the maze, and Hito considered it might just be her speculation. She asked for his permission to accompany Sogiro, and he agreed. Elsewhere, Rigniji faced Dakai, who informed him that he had come to investigate on Terran's orders, but Rigniji refused to cooperate with a foolish duelist. Dakai replied that the feeling was mutual, as he had no admiration for wyverns. He then asked about the diaries, and Rigniji repeated, "Diaries?" Dakai explained that they were daily records written in a notebook, and asked if he knew that Kurt also kept diaries. Rigniji denied knowing, and Dakai revealed that they were tactile diaries, likely recording his conversations with her, accusing him of negligence for discussing his military tasks with her, leading to information leaks to Yuriacha. Rigniji threatened to kill him if he touched Kurt, and Dakai asked if he had a chance to defeat him, referring to the incident 4 years ago when the Demon King destroyed Rigniji's previous swarm, the period when Kurt lost her sight, wondering how he had managed to build a new swarm so quickly. Rigniji asked what he would do if he revealed the truth, and Dakai assured him that he had no intention of harming him or Kurt. Rigniji asked him to attend Kurt's interrogation, but he saw it as pointless, as she would refuse to speak, guessing that someone had influenced her thoughts without her being able to see them. He grew worried, realizing that if Kurt's betrayal was proven, he would have to make the right decision to protect his swarm. Meanwhile, Kurt was having dinner with Terran and expressed her suspicion that Rigniji had taken her scarf unintentionally, as she had searched for it in her room and couldn't find it. Terran advised her to forgive him, but Kurt called her mom and asked her not to assign Rigniji dangerous tasks. Terran explained that his duty always exposed him to danger, and Kurt asked if the war would break out again. Terran confirmed that Yuriacha wouldn't tolerate the existence of another Demon King, and since she had declared herself the Demon Queen, the Yuriachian army would be sent against her, so she had to protect Lithia. Terran recalled the moment she found Kurt with Rigniji, realizing that Kurt wanted to believe he was an angel protecting humans, so she hadn't told her the truth. Kurt asked if she was sheltering her because of Rigniji, as he didn't work without her, and Terran replied that she was an important element in the war. Kurt asked if they would live happily if the war ended and they won, and Terran reassured her that there was no need to worry, confirming that she had never lost any battle she had fought before, and would end the war against Yuriacha as quickly as possible. Elsewhere, Kia was walking with Elia in an area resembling a market and noted that Ita had more trees. Elia replied that Yuriacha was a more beautiful city, but Kia accused her of lying, while Elia admitted to herself that her arrival in Lithia wasn't for tourism or Kia's lessons, but that she had a secret trump card that had to remain hidden, and she had to get rid of anyone who knew about her relationship with Kia before the competition. Later, Elia led her to the port, and when Kia asked who they were meeting, she replied that it was an old acquaintance, then pointed to a ship and ordered her to board it and take a look while she waited in the garden. Meanwhile, Elia met Lana, the only one who knew the secret of the word of the world, as she had been sneaking into Lithia as a spy for Yuriacha, relaying information about this secret. Elia asked when Terran would be assassinated, and Lana replied that she was already aware of everything, revealing that during her time working in Lithia, she had managed to gather qualified mercenaries, Higuar of the Sea, and Shulk the Voice Cutter, who could incite internal conflict, as she was a skilled spy who wasn't suspected. Suddenly, Kia ran toward Elia and told her that they hadn't allowed her to board the ship, prompting Lana to comment that the girl must be one of Elia's new students. She then approached Kia and introduced herself as a former student of Elia's, offering to accompany her on a tour, suggesting they visit a restaurant that served rice dishes, and Kia agreed. As they walked through the city, Elia noticed the calm atmosphere, praising Terran's good management, and Lana confirmed it, noting that Terran was considered a queen because her people saw her as the ideal ruler. Elia noticed that people were celebrating in the tavern, and was surprised they were celebrating despite the approaching war with Yuriacha, assuming they trusted in the Invincible Dragon army. Elia admitted that she owed a lot to Terran but hadn't found the chance to thank her, and Lana replied that if Terran wasn't killed, a new war would break out with no winner. After that, Elia let Kia rest on the couch. When Kia woke up, she wondered if they had reached the inn, and Elia replied that they were close. Then, Lana asked Elia if she would be going to Yuriacha soon, and Elia answered that she would first buy a toy for Kia from Lithia. After Lana left, Elia noticed that she had met Dakai, who informed her that there was a spy among them, Miss Kurt. This surprised her, and she asked if he meant that Terran's adopted daughter was leaking information. He confirmed it, explaining that she had been using Braille to write her notes, which led Lana to dismiss the possibility of betrayal and suspect that someone had exploited her. Dakai added that using a blind girl to gather information was a brilliant idea, and taking advantage of her absence from the city was the perfect tactic, as the informant had gone out searching for mercenaries. His words raised Lana's suspicions, but she asked for evidence. He clarified that Lana herself was the spy. Since her return from the city, she had been copying the notes and leaking them before her comrades could access them, then sending the copies to Yuriacha's spies. Elia watched as Dakai escorted Lana to Miss Terran, realizing she had fallen into a trap, and any confession from her would lead to her own investigation. At that moment, Kia woke up and asked Elia what was happening. Elia replied that a thief had kidnapped Lana, and they needed to save her. While Oriesha's soldiers headed to the border of Lithia, Juno accompanied them, explaining that she had come to study Lithia's terrain. She questioned how dangerous it was to get closer, and the commander replied that the situation with Lithia was volatile, but there was a treaty granting them a grace period to withdraw their independence and rejoin Oriesha. He added that Lithia itself had requested these patrols. When Juno asked about the outlaws, he explained that Oriesha was inciting them, making her realize that the patrols were merely a show of force. The commander continued, stating that Lithia was fully aware of this and was using the patrols to harass and psychologically exhaust Oriesha's soldiers, even exploiting any mistake to ignite war. He confirmed that Terran understood the rules of the game, but Lithia had no real reason to attack yet. At that moment, Sugiro chimed in, saying he had traveled this distance believing there would be a worthy opponent to fight, but now he wondered what he would do if no battle broke out. He declared his intention to meet Terran himself and provoke her into war. The commander noted his enthusiasm, but Juno quickly apologized, explaining that Sugiro wasn't from their world. The commander replied that Oriesha desired peace and had planned to make Lithia an independent region, abolishing the title of Demon King. Sugiro asked if Lithia was using wyvern dragons, and the commander confirmed that they were a dangerous force beyond the control of the Minya clans. He explained that Terran was trying to build a new system instead of a kingdom, making her more like Ashura, possessed by war. Suddenly, Sugiro stopped them, pointing out enemies, as Shulk and Higuar appeared. The commander ordered his soldiers to prepare for battle, demanding the mercenaries present their travel permits. Shulk responded that as long as they were on a mission to hunt outlaws, this shouldn't surprise them. The commander ordered his deputy to take 3 men and return to headquarters to report. However, Shulk leapt high, ready to thrust his spear at the commander, but Sugiro intercepted him at the last moment, causing him to fall to the ground. Sugiro drew his weapon, asking who his opponent was, and Shulk replied that there was finally someone who could match him in combat. Shulk began attacking with swift spear movements, but Sugiro skillfully dodged them, flipping through the air, and soon their weapons clashed, sending fiery sparks into the air. As the duel continued, Sugiro began predicting his opponent's moves, nearly hitting his weak points. Meanwhile, the commander ordered his soldiers to aim their arrows at the assassin, while Shulk told Higuar to steal a horse and escape, as he would handle the duelist. The assassin drew his knives, ready to attack, but the commander gave the order to fire arrows at him. In a flash, the assassin moved with superhuman speed, cutting through the soldiers with his poisoned weapons. Juno took cover behind a soldier to avoid being stabbed, while the assassin retrieved his knives, and the soldiers fell one by one from their horses, affected by the poison. Sugiro shouted for Juno to run, but the assassin ordered her to help him mount a horse and head to Lithia, explaining that he couldn't ride a horse himself. Juno realized he had deliberately kept her alive because she was the weakest among them, so she complied and went with him, while Sugiro continued his fight against Shulk. In the city of Mage, Hargant visited Heido, offering to help him deal with the wyvern dragons. However, Heido refused, reminding him of his failure in the recent dragon hunt, and ordered him to return to Oriesha, leaving his soldiers behind, as he had a special plan for Terran's dragons. Garnet objected, pointing out that the real problem wasn't Terran, but Alos, the Star Runner, who wouldn't stay silent after Lithia stole the Cold Star from the Noggin Maze. He predicted that Mage might face a dual attack from Alos and Lithia. Faced with this threat, Heido agreed to help Hargant. At that moment, the two felt an earthquake, and when they looked out the window, they saw a massive energy beam threatening Mage, followed by fiery explosions. Heido wondered why the city was being bombed despite their good relations with Lithia, and his assistant entered to inform him that the entire patrol had been killed by a mysterious poison. When asked about survivors, he was told it seemed no one had survived, not even Sugiro. Hargant then asked Heido about his next move, and Heido replied that Sugiro was just a pawn in the assassination plan, and that they still had Kozu, who would act immediately. Hargant suggested deploying the soldiers, but Heido firmly refused, stating that the dragon army was approaching to besiege them. Hargant tried to convince him to send his team to hunt the dragons, but Heido became furious, explaining that their current situation didn't allow for such a move, and that the dragons entering the fortress would mean their end. Defending the fortress was the only option. Hargant, however, insisted on facing the dragons alone, determined not to let them devour any citizens. Heido refused to let him use the soldiers to become a hero, emphasizing that this included his team as well. But Hargant didn't need the soldiers. He decided to fight alone. After leaving, Heido thought about it and realized Hargant was right. He ordered his assistant to contact the emergency line Radzio 7 and decided to protect the city and Hargant. He contacted Nihilo, asking her to eliminate any enemy threatening the 6th general and to kill all wyvern dragons without harming enemy soldiers until she received approval. He also informed her that Sugiro had been killed, making the success of the assassination plan uncertain. So if Kozu failed, she would have to destroy Lithia entirely. Nihilo agreed, on the condition that he fulfill his promise to her. Heido assured her he would get her what she wanted. After the call ended, the assistant asked Heido if they could really trust Nihilo, and Heido replied that she was just a weapon looking for a deal, but he reminded him that she was a monster who had once destroyed an Oriatia army single-handedly, and Heido said he would soon find out if his decision was correct. Meanwhile, Nihilo went to Harsine and ordered them to open a secret gate, revealing a metallic vehicle known as Hellnetin. Nihilo then removed her clothes and jumped inside, saying, "It's been a long time since I used this body," before emerging in her new form, resembling a giant frog, ready for battle. Just hours before the bombardment, Dakai Yuno captured her, confirming that the place wasn't a prison and that she could escape. He had investigated her and found she was just an ordinary person. She wondered why she had been brought there, and he replied that she was brought because Higwar couldn't ride a horse. He told her to consider herself at home because he had another guest to deal with. As he turned to leave, she saw his weapon and remembered Hido's words about him being Dakai the Magpie. When she looked at his sword, she deduced he was a duelist. He asked if she was impressed. She replied that she was Yuno from the Noggin Labyrinth and blamed him for analyzing her, which caused the golem to move. He countered that they were the ones who wanted to analyze the labyrinth first, so Noggin's destruction was inevitable. No one expected the basement golem to activate when someone reached the heart of the labyrinth. She told him he was responsible for destroying her city and the death of her friends, and now he was starting a war. He replied that people choose between war and peace. She remembered Sojiro, saying everyone is the same, only thinking of war while ignoring the innocent crushed underfoot. She then threatened to make him suffer as she had. He challenged her to do it immediately, asking if she intended to fire the hidden arrow in her sleeve and daring her to try to see who was faster. She stepped back, and he calmly told her not to exhaust herself with thoughts of revenge, but to find a new home and family. He assured her he would release her once things calmed down outside. Meanwhile, Shulk returned to the castle, where Higwar asked why he was late. He replied that the duelist Sojiro was skilled, and told Dakai that he might not be the only visitor in Lithia. When asked if he had killed Sojiro, he said no, explaining he hadn't received his reward yet, and that ordering his death would put his life at risk. Terran intervened, saying he had done enough, and suggesting Sojiro might attack her alone. Shulk pointed out he barely escaped and assured her no one would blame her if she decided to flee, but she refused, saying her destiny was to rule people through fear, and she couldn't run away. She would start the war, subdue any opposition by force, and fight alongside others relying on their talents and combat courage. Higwar expressed his happiness at her protection, while Shulk said he would get his reward. Dakai mentioned someone heading to the castle who might be able to defeat Shulk, and Rigneji declared he would handle it. Terran ordered him to eliminate any obstacles, destroy the city of Maij, and cut off their supply lines to show the terror of the Wyvern dragons. He confirmed that the entire Minya lineage in Maij would become food for his swarm. After the city was bombarded, soldiers rushed to help the citizens, trying to save them from the destruction and fires. Some noticed the fire was spreading despite their efforts to extinguish it, while the Wyvern dragons flew overhead, making them believe the dragons were igniting the flames. Hargan stood before them, introducing himself and explaining that dropping stones was part of the attack. The enemy was clever, using ground tactics to bombard them with stones while their allies set fires in the city and dropped fuel bottles to spread the flames, trying to smoke them out of their shelters. Once they emerged, they would be attacked. He confirmed the attack was sudden, without a declaration of war, and that Lithia had violated the peace treaty. The citizens wondered about the Oriatia army and how long they could hold out. He replied that his unit had been wiped out, and it would take time for more troops to arrive, leaving defense and planning as their only options. Suddenly, a dragon attack occurred, and Hargan ordered them to retreat. He fell to the ground, watching as one of the dragons fell. He realized Alus was attacking the Wyvern dragons just as he had predicted, and urged the citizens to stay calm. When they asked what was happening, he explained his mission was to hunt dragons, but protecting the city was their responsibility. Anyone who wanted to fight should head to Lithia, where he would lead them. At that time, Alus was engaged in an aerial battle against the Wyvern dragons, while Rigneji ordered them to eliminate him. They fired their weapons at him, but he was in control, directing his weapon toward the dragons to strike anyone who got close. As the bombardment continued, Kia and Ilya ran to rescue Lana. Kia used her power to locate her, but Ilya warned her not to draw attention, pointing out they would sneak into the thief's base to save her, and attracting attention would be dangerous. When they reached a spot guarded by two men, Ilya ordered Kia to put them to sleep, as they were Dakai's allies, and she did so immediately. They soon reached Lana's cell, but her severe injuries prompted Ilya to ask Kia to watch outside while she treated her. Lana wondered how Ilya had found her, noting even the tactical squad couldn't bypass security to reach her. She then asked why Kia was with her and quickly deduced she must have found the word of the world. Ilya scolded her for talking and warned her about worsening her injuries, but Kia soon called out, sensing someone approaching. Higwar appeared, and Lana shouted his name, claiming Ilya and Kia had come to kill her, while insisting she hadn't revealed any information. Higuar wondered how the girl had broken in, then drew his 42 daggers, but Lana quickly told him about the word of the world that the new emirate was searching for. As Higuar's daggers moved toward Kia, she commanded her power to protect her from any danger, and the daggers fell. When he tried to attack again, he disintegrated into ash, shocking Kia and Ilya. Lana seized the opportunity and fled. Ilya thought chasing her further might endanger the word of the world, so she grabbed Kia's hand, insisting they had to escape. But Kia refused. Determined to save Lana, they left, leaving Higuar dead behind them. However, Kia's words weren't the reason for Higuar's death. It was Cozy, hidden nearby, whose angel, Nastic, had stabbed Higuar with her Fang of Death sword because he was about to use evaporating poison to kill everyone, which would have affected Cozy too. The army gathered in Lithia, and the commander began giving instructions, warning of a cavalry attack and emphasizing not to let any horsemen pass. At that moment, Sojiro arrived and ordered the soldiers to step aside, but they fired arrows at him. He deflected them all with his sword, mocking their poor accuracy. The commander asked if he was a hired killer, and he replied he had given them a chance to step aside. Before he could say more, Nihilo appeared in her new body, cutting through the soldiers with her weapons, shocking Sojiro, who wondered what she was. She continued advancing, threatening everyone with death. The commander ordered the use of cannons and to alert the wyvern dragons, but Nihilo leaped over them with agility. Sojiro called out to her again, asking who she was. She replied that she knew him as the Willow Master, and that she was his ally. He told her she would have to fight him too, and when she asked why, he simply said she was strong. He lunged at her with his weapon at blinding speed, and she asked if he was a follower. He replied that the vehicle she used and the person controlling it embodied life itself, but she had no intention of fighting him, as she was about to complete her mission. She soon killed all the soldiers and prepared to leave, but Sojiro pursued her, attacking with his sword. Nihilo wondered if there was truly someone who could shatter her armor, but she was surprised when his sword easily cut through it, making her question what kind of weapon it was. It seemed there was someone else besides Cozy capable of killing her, even though she possessed deadly weapons that could pierce entire armies with a single strike. She had been given 2 bodies for combat and destruction, making her a kind of armored warhorse. Meanwhile, the wyvern dragons were chasing Alus, while Rigneji explained to his swarm that Helensingen, the glowing blade, was Alus's strongest attack, releasing a spark that extended 4 meters when wielded. His other enchanted sword, the Shivering Bird, could fly on its own and emit a terrifying noise, making it a separate enemy. Additionally, he had a magical whip called Kyu's Hand, over 12 meters long, which he used as a defensive barrier, along with a long-range rifle and magical bullets. Some poisonous, capable of turning any target into mud with a scratch, and others that shocked with thunder. After giving his instructions, Rigneji ordered the attack and began taunting Alus, who drew his rifle and fired at them, but Rigneji's swarm dodged the shot. Rigneji mocked the reckless reaction, while Alus entered the soldiers' firing range, and they began aiming at him. Alus realized there was a trap waiting for him, and that stopping meant his end, so he used Kyu's Hand as a defensive barrier and emitted a bright light from his mouth. Rigneji smiled confidently, having prepared countermeasures for these abilities, and suspected Alus was after the Cold Star, but Alus replied he didn't need something like that to destroy a city. Soon, fires broke out across the city, but Rigneji downplayed the attack, pointing out only the streets were burning, not military facilities. Alus wondered what would happen if the fire spread to Kurt, but he was surprised by another swarm belonging to Rigneji. He asked who they were, and Rigneji replied he had rebuilt his unit, destroyed 4 years ago, using life arts and altering their minds. He might use the same method on him too. Alus was furious and accused him of lying, but Rigneji asked if he was prolonging the conversation just to buy time, as his defeat was imminent. Arrows flew at Alus in droves, and Rigneji said his forces had been prepared even before his arrival. Alus replied he was only talking to give him a chance to admit his mistake, but soon the dragon's weapons knocked him down. Rigneji ordered his swarm to pursue him, expecting him to try flying at a low altitude, so he told his soldiers to stop him at any cost, even if it meant their lives. Indeed, one of them tracked Alus, who was flying over the flames, but he used his whip to pierce the soldier, then attacked the others with his weapons, mocking Rigneji's preparations. But Rigneji wasn't without a plan. He released giant insects attracted by the smoke rising from Alus's body, surrounding him. He explained that the location they were fighting in was full of deadly beetle nests, and that his plan from the start had been to lure him into this trap, where the beetles would devour him and destroy his brain. Alus's sword fell from his hand as the insects began to consume his body, and Rigneji declared his victory. But suddenly, a massive explosion erupted from the top of a building, knocking Rigneji and his swarm down completely. Amid the destruction, Alus regained his strength, mocking Rigneji for talking too much. He picked up his blade and flew high, ready to fight again. While the citizens of Meg attacked Lithia's soldiers, accusing them of burning their city, Kia walked through the flames, telling Ilya that the fire surrounded them from all directions. Ilya wondered if the cause was the riot started by Meg's soldiers, or if someone else was responsible for the fire. Suddenly, two men blocked their path. One confirmed to the other that they weren't soldiers, but the other replied that they belonged to Lithia, the city that destroyed Meg, making them guilty as well. As they tried to approach, Shulk suddenly appeared and killed them with his spear. He then questioned their identities, as they didn't seem to be from Lithia. Neither Kia nor Ilya answered, but Ilya considered having Kia order Shulk to die for killing them, though she was still thinking of how to make her say it before he could attack. Before she could decide, Kia spoke up, saying she came from the city of Eta to study and pointed to Ilya as her teacher. She thanked Shulk for saving them, but told him he didn't have to kill the citizens. Shulk directed them to the eastern side where Lithia's soldiers were evacuating citizens, assuring them the fire hadn't reached there yet. Kia asked for his name, and he replied that he had a name when he was alive. Meanwhile, the soldiers organized the citizens' passage, prioritizing women and children. Ilya tried to convince Kia to leave the city due to the danger, but she refused to go without Lana. Ilya remembered her childhood, crying by someone's bedside, wishing she had someone to trust back then. Kia's words snapped her out of it, emphasizing the need to save Lana, or she'd regret it when she grew older. She asked Ilya to accompany her, and after a moment of hesitation, Ilya realized she no longer had a reason to kill Lana, but she feared someone might suspect the existence of the world's word if she let Kia do as she pleased. Still, she gave in to Kia's insistence, and they began searching for Lana. As they walked, Kia asked Ilya if she felt sorry for Lana because of the destruction of her city. Ilya replied that he hoped everything would return to normal. Elsewhere, Dakai stood in front of a fountain, saying he had once been fond of it before a dragon and an Evern fell nearby, revealing the complete destruction of the city. Meg's citizens were slaughtering Lithia's people, and fire spread everywhere. At that moment, Nihilo appeared, and Dakai told her all the teams had withdrawn, leaving only him. She told him he should have withdrawn too, but he insisted he made them retreat to stay out of his way, believing escape in this world was a great loss. He drew his sword to attack her, and she ordered him to watch as everything around them began to crumble. She launched her weapons and jumped at him, but he dodged, noticing a core in her body like the golems he'd seen in Noggin. He questioned where it was, determined to kill her, and quickly slipped between her armor, striking her with his sword. But he realized her armor was sturdy. She told him he was a skilled duelist, but couldn't defeat her. When she called him a duelist, he asked who had stabbed her before, but she responded by launching more sharp weapons at him. He kept jumping to avoid her attacks until her foot touched the fountain, and he admitted he had always loved that fountain. He studied her movements until she jumped into the air, forming a spider web. When she tried to trap him, she told him it was time for him to die, but he ordered the soldiers to light the cold star, which burned her vehicle with its heat. After the cold star stopped, Dakai was surprised to see her rise again. Realizing heat and shock didn't affect her, she asked if he thought he had defeated her, but he kept thinking about how someone could stay alive without any air vents. He tried to lure her into the water to destroy her, but it didn't work, and his enchanted sword couldn't penetrate her. As he thought about how someone else had managed to injure her, she attacked him with her claw, knocking him down, but he got up, determined to try again. She was surprised he was still alive, and he waved his sword, saying he wasn't a duelist, but a thief. She replied that she was trying to harmonize with Minya, and they might harmonize well. He told her to watch him, then suddenly flew around, surrounding himself with a spiderweb, confirming his true skill lay in stealing weapons and opening locks. He quickly jumped and stabbed her vehicle, which opened, revealing her face, which he found as beautiful as he had imagined. She asked how he did it, and he told her he had to think a little, that her biological tank might work on nerves, and if so, the hatch opened the same way. He decided to destroy her by destroying the nerves with venom, stealing one of the poison swords Higwar had hidden in his body, using his keen observation to pinpoint the exact location of the nerve flow from her vehicle, targeting a specific part of the brain with the venom to open the hatch, using the wound Sugiro had previously made as a keyhole. Meanwhile, Lana appeared somewhere, announcing that Higwar had been killed, while she watched the fires surrounding the city, stating that monsters who trampled others like trash shouldn't be allowed to remain. Kia and Ilya soon found her, and she told them the place was full of monsters, and what was happening was truly terrifying. She grabbed the cold star, determined to destroy everything, and began activating its light, but Kia stopped it with her command, and it faded. Lana calmed down, realizing she had been scared and unable to think clearly. Kia then asked Ilya if the purpose of her power was to make people happy, as she told her before, but Ilya stopped her, warning her not to reveal her power. Still, Kia ordered the fires to disappear, and they faded, reassuring Lana who directly asked Ilya if she planned to kill her, pleading with her not to. Ilya noticed Kia silently watching them and tried to silence Lana, and Kia soon apologized to Lana for not being able to save the city sooner. Takai went to Yuno to ask her to leave, as he had come to help her as promised. Yuno asked him how he found time to see her while his army was still fighting, and he replied that Lethia was finished, and this army was no longer his, but he wanted to keep his promise to her. He assured her that what happened wasn't her fault. Perhaps he seemed evil to her because of the Noggin case, but he wasn't like that. She wondered if he didn't care about the destruction of his city, or if he felt pain. Didn't he fight to the death? She felt like she was in hell because of losing one person, but he ignored her question, saying he loved Terran, but he trusted he would find someone else. Before he left, Yuno called him, reminding him he had told her to take revenge whenever she wanted, and she summoned her power and attacked him, but he blocked her attack, asking if she was serious about fighting him. Meanwhile, Rigny ordered Kurt to escape quickly. She looked at his blood and asked if it was his, not believing he had lost, but he replied that Lethia was finished, and he owed Terran, but everything was destroyed now. He told her to escape before Oriesha's army arrived, as she needed to stay alive. At that moment, Hargant appeared and ordered them not to move. Kurt asked who he was, and he replied that he was the 6th general, sent to defeat a foreign enemy at the request of the city of Meg. She realized it was over, and asked if she was a prisoner or a citizen, but she stood to protect Rigny, and he told her not to defend him, confirming he was a terrifying creature who had killed many people, and he would ensure his defeat as a member of the Minya lineage. She replied that he wasn't just a creature, but her dear friend, who had helped her more than any other follower, but Hargant insisted that a young girl like her shouldn't bear the burden of his crimes. Kurt approached Rigny, confirming he wasn't doing anything different from what they were doing. At that moment, Hargant ordered her to step away, but Rigny stood to protect her, and Hargant fired his gun. Kurt was hit, and Rigny fell wounded beside her, their blood mixing. At that moment, Hargant spotted Alus from afar holding his gun and decided to leave. Cozy arrived and approached Kurt, who was catching her breath, saying he was an angel who had come for her, then placed his hand on her wounds, saying everyone had the right to survive. Elsewhere, Terran killed everyone in her path until she faced Shulk, who asked if she regretted fighting a losing battle. She replied that she didn't regret it. As long as one fought, they had to be ready to accept defeat, but she regretted not being able to bring happiness to her soldiers, her people, and Kurt, who had trusted her, and it pained her to die after dragging them behind her unknown principles. She took out a paper and gave it to Shulk, explaining that she had always wanted information about the last land, where the Demon King had died. She advised him to have someone read it for him, as she had explored that land several times, but her attempts always failed, indicating the presence of an unknown monster there. Still, her explorers had managed to map the area. Shulk told her that if he had worked harder, he could have helped her more. She threw the paper at him, saying she couldn't give him a greater reward than that, and told him to go wherever he wanted. Shulk left, saying he had thought she would be a good queen, but she wasn't qualified. Meanwhile, Yuno tried to punch Dakai, determined to land at least one hit, but he told her to escape, but she kept trying until he stood still, and she finally punched him in the face. He told her she had won, and doubted he would see her again before leaving, but suddenly, Sugiro appeared with his sword, greeting Dakai, who then realized Yuno's arrows had been decreasing in number, because she had been using them to send signals to Sugiro to locate her, but he hadn't expected that at the time. Yuno told him her name was Yuno the Far Claw, and Dakai laughed hysterically, saying life was full of surprises, and he couldn't believe a girl had defeated him. He turned to Sugiro, saying he must be the duelist who cut the spider, and it seemed he had a good sword. Sugiro replied that he didn't seem like a duelist, and Dakai grabbed his sword, saying he was glad someone understood him correctly, but he asked if his job wasn't to kill Miss Terran. Sugiro replied that he had only come to fight someone worth fighting, and he didn't see killing Terran as a worthwhile goal, but he thought following Yuno's arrows would be more exciting. Sugiro asked Dakai to fight, but Dakai said there was no need to rush, as one of them would die in the end. He then asked him to remember the far world, but Sugiro replied that he had no good memories of it, as the food was bad, and people tried to kill him every day until he reached this world. Dakai replied that the same thing had happened to him, and he never felt the desire to return to his world. Maybe all visitors were like them, alone because they were strong, but despite that, he loved his solitude and what he was. At that moment, Yuno screamed at Sugiro to kill Dakai, as she wanted revenge. The fight began between them, each showcasing their weapon skills. Sugiro charged at Dakai, but Dakai's sword was faster, knocking Sugiro's sword down. As he was about to strike, Sugiro blocked him with a quick hand movement, and Dakai praised his skill, but Sugiro soon picked up his sword and lightly stabbed Dakai, who fell to the ground. finally defeated. Kuzi asked Terran why she had started the war, especially after informing her of Kurt's death. She replied that she wanted to rule the country instead of Oriatia. He responded that he didn't believe a state relying on mercenaries and wyvern dragons could last long. She pointed out that many rulers had been driven to ruin by the madness of power. He wondered if her plan from the beginning was to ally with Oriatia, and that the battle was merely a way to gather the monsters threatening the world and pit them against each other, especially since Lithia had allowed wyvern dragons and the Minya lineage to coexist. He asked if this had happened because of her daughter, but she denied it, explaining that the goal was to subjugate the wyvern dragons under her command, which was why she had needed Kurt from the start. She then told him that his time with her was nearly over, but he replied that he was a holy knight and wanted to hear her final wish. She said she wished for a hero to emerge who would rule people with a power greater than fear. Kuzi was surprised by her wish, especially since she was a demon queen. As soon as she finished speaking, she drew her sword, but he told her he would fulfill her daughter's last wish, as she had asked him to save her. Elsewhere, Lana wandered through the devastated city, reflecting on the destruction around her, saying that nothing had changed despite the death of the Demon King. Suddenly, she collapsed to the ground, vomiting blood, and realized that Elia had poisoned her with a slow-acting toxin. She lay on the ground, unable to move, while Hargant watched the soldiers and their commander issuing orders to leave no wyvern dragon alive. Hito approached him, saying he thought things were over when the cold star struck, but everything had been decided before dawn. Hargant asked about the number of casualties, and Hito replied that the number wasn't large considering the ferocity of the war. He added that the authorities would portray the battle as a rebellion led by Terran and the Wyvern Dragon army, which would allow Oriatia to intervene under the guise of reconstruction and immediately annex Lithia, ending the principality after Terran's defeat. Elsewhere, Kia was with Elia in a carriage, saying she was strong and her power was invincible even against fires and battles. She could overcome anything. Elia replied that it wasn't her fault, but she was determined not to reveal her true self before the competition, as she had to protect her until she won. Kia asked if she was angry about Lana's escape, and Elia said no. The day after the turmoil, Kuzi stood before a grave and asked the gravedigger if he needed help. The man thanked him and said the coffins belonged to victims of yesterday's fire and the Wyvern Dragon attack, where many soldiers had died. Kuzi prayed for them, noting that they might be soldiers from Mage City, but there was no difference between them and Lithia's soldiers after death. The gravedigger replied that they were soldiers protecting the country, so Kuzi helped carry the coffins, saying no one should die this way, which was why he was doing his best to save others. Meanwhile, Sugiro and Yuno were leading carriages transporting citizens. Yuno asked if he would ride the carriage, but he said he hated carriages. She told him Oriacha's plan had succeeded, but the orders were to assassinate Terran, so he might not get a chance to participate in the Empire's competition. He replied indifferently, saying it wasn't a problem, as he had enjoyed fighting Dakai and didn't regret his decisions. Yuno told him he only cared about himself and those he fought, as if the whole world didn't matter. He said she might be right, but all he knew was wielding a sword and killing. She reminded him that she had promised to guide him and asked him to tell her about the distant world he came from. Meanwhile, Hito examined Nihilo's vehicle and discovered it was dead, apologizing for not being able to fulfill her request. Later, he met Alos, who asked if he was an important general in Oriatia like Hargant, but Hito said he was just a civil official, not a general. He explained that he knew why Alos had come. Since he had survived the fight, he could kill him and take what he wanted, or they could make a deal, as he knew Alos wanted the Cold Star. But Alos said he had heard Oriatia was planning a massive competition to choose a true hero, and he wanted to participate to fight Hargant. Hito smiled, saying he had intended to suggest the same thing, and told him he would support him as the primary candidate. A year earlier, in the Oriatia Council, the third minister, Gilki, said those who had filed reports considered themselves heroes and were seeking fame. He wondered to himself, could it be that the true hero died without anyone knowing? Given the Demon King's power, it's possible. As he pondered, Yuka approached and asked why he was angry. He replied that it was about the issue of the hero. Gilki asked Yuka if he had received orders to suppress the rebels, which was why he was wearing armor. Yuka said he had been forced to kill 2 of them. He added that the Demon King's war was over, but now he had to fight against his own people, the Minya. Soon, Elia arrived and told Gilki she noticed the issue of the hero was on his mind. But when he saw Queen Sifit with her, he asked why she had brought her and began arguing with her. So Yuka intervened to settle the dispute. The queen approached Gilki and told him she felt the hero still existed. He said he would search for him, and Elia told her she would remain the people's leader, even if there was no hero, as she hadn't yet engaged in politics, but would take charge at the right time. The queen suggested offering a reward to anyone who emerged as a hero, and issuing an official decree to select one. Yuko proposed gathering the heroes and having them compete in royal games to determine the strongest.